Welcome to the Falcons Fanatic Podcast, your dirty birds every weekend.
Welcome back to the Falcons Fanatic Podcast. A tough week for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm joined by another one of my friends. This time it's Max Purdon. Max, how are you doing? How are you feeling after this big win for your squad?
Good. Yeah, I feel good. It was a pretty stress-free game to watch, which is sort of a change of pace for the Seahawks. Usually we're sort of grinding it down at the end and breaking our hearts, but that was a nice change of pace for us.
Yeah, and it really seemed like it was in your guys' control, basically from the get-go. The Falcons were, staying within 10 points at a certain point, but you guys really had full control. Geno Smith did whatever he wanted to do offensively, and I expected our defense to be weak after we had a poor game against the Panthers. But yeah, you ran the ball well with Kenneth Walker, got a touchdown in this one. Geno Smith was good. Everything you wanted to see from your offense.
Yeah, and it's really important for the Seahawks offense to get ahead in games with how bad the run defense has been, and it feels like that missed kick by Koo early in the game was really sort of a difference maker because it allowed the Seahawks to drive downfield and go up 10-0 with the sort of favorable field position there, and then that just started sort of a snowball of stuff that sort of broke in the Seahawks' favor.
Yeah, the way I would describe both of our quarterbacks, both Geno and Kirk Cousins, is they're sort of, and everybody's explained them as this always, but they're game managers, right? And so once the game got out of hand for Kirk Cousins, he sort of forced his hand a little bit and trying stuff Kirk Cousins can't really do. I mean, if it was a player like Michael Penix who has more zip on that ball, maybe he does fit one of those Kyle Pitts routes right up the seam, but he just doesn't have the zip, the ability to plant that foot that a Penix does, that even a Geno Smith does, and you forced one of the game managers to try to be more than that, and that's when these teams falter. And you could sort of see the similar thing with Geno, would you say, about last week for you guys against the 49ers, where he was just forcing stuff a little bit too much because he was down. Their defense wasn't helping.
Yeah, and with Geno last week, they're just throwing the ball time after time after time because the run game is also not working. I feel like it was a little bit different than Kirk in this game. They couldn't run the ball because of the game situation. You obviously you don't want, once you're down 10, once you're down 17, you don't want to be handing the ball off as effective as it was. And as soon as you're down 10, 17 and running the ball isn't an option, then play action is sort of out of the picture. And not being able to use play action successfully when you're playing the Seahawks defense is going to absolutely kill you, because that's one of the Seahawks defense's biggest weaknesses, and the Falcons just had no way of taking advantage of it.
Well, and I thought this would be preferable for our passing game because you guys were down, I think, both your corner starters, if that's correct.
Yeah,
Witherspoon was in or something? What was on?
Yeah, so we had Reek Woolen out, who's one of our starting boundary corners, and then Trey Brown was out as well, and he either plays he plays the boundary when we're in nickel, and then Witherspoon pushes inside of the nickel. So right. Yeah, basically two of our starting corners because our base is basically nickel.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought you guys could do whatever you wanted. The interior of our defensive line continues to just be as weak as anything I've seen, and it's really disappointing to see because we did reinforce that area. I know we have Daquan Graham in there. We got Eddie Goldman. Last year we picked him up. We picked up Ruka Rororo, who got a sack in this game. Did that count as a sack on that dropped ball and Geno just sort of fell on it? He may have gotten his first sack this week. But the defensive interior of our line is really weak in the run game, and it was a strength of ours in the past years of being able to stop the run. Right, we're not going to rush the passer. At least we can stop the run. Onyemata, Grady Jarrett are just a little too old. They're a little bit too past their prime, and I think that's the point of drafting a Rook. But it's just too early for Rook to be really impacting games, and it's too late for Onyemata and Jarrett, and you just see these huge gashes by Walker opened up, and it's been the same story. Chuba Hubbard, how do I say that?
Chuba Hubbard, yeah.
Chuba Hubbard, yeah. He wrecked us last week at the beginning of the game, at least. And then as the game goes, we saw Jarrett recover. But, it's a different team playing the Seahawks versus the Panthers, right? And this is what I was worried about, is because our defense was not really good last week, and it was the Panthers, right? Like, you're letting up 20 points early against the Panthers. You can't be doing that. And it paid, and it showed today because the Seahawks had 34, and I don't really know what the answer is for our defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for the Falcons, like if you want to draw some positives from this game, like on a down-to-down basis, I don't think the rush defense was like abhorrent. Like if you look at the success rate according to our rbsem.com, like their success rate on against the rush was like, or the Seahawks success rate rushing the ball was only 33%, which is quite poor. But when you look at specific plays, like if you look at the one where Walker takes it into the end zone from like what 25 yards out. Yeah, 20 yards out. Like that was like really quite bad from the Falcons defense. You end up getting sealed on the edge by like our fourth string tackle in Mike Jarrell, and then sealed by the guard by Christian Haynes, who's also a rookie. So like that, it sort of encapsulates the whole game. Like the Falcons didn't necessarily play bad overall, but situationally they just had some breakdowns in key moments that just broke the Seahawks way.
And I think the biggest key moment for me, at least watching, that really spelled the end for the Falcons was the Kirk Cousins rolling out to his left side, which he doesn't do usually, and so he's sort of like awkward, like his arms on this side, he's trying to throw, he switches his legs, and that gives just enough time for, I'm not exactly sure who got this strip.
It was Mafe on the strip, and then Hall took it back.
And Kirk just sort of just tries to throw it away, but it's way too late. He's way too slow with it. Mafe picks it up, and it's Hall into the end zone.
Yeah, Hall picks it up into the end zone. Yeah, Witherspoon like throws himself at the offensive lineman and just does like nothing.
Yeah, that was Caleb McGarry trying to track back and get the tackle. He looked so slow and stiff on that play. But that really, because I was watching the game with my friends in the car, and they're like looking over my shoulder, and they're like, "Oh, well, they're only down 4. They're only down touchdown." And then they look over and they're like, "Jesus Christ, what happened?" Like we were driving, we were at the 50-yard line just about, and complete change of the game, complete swing. Seahawks now up 2 scores, maybe 3.
Yeah, they were up 10, and then that put them up 17. Yeah, they were up 24-14, and then that swung it to 31-14, and it made it 3 scores.
And I feel like our offense could drive on you the whole game, though. Like our first possession of the game, we just get caught a couple times by Ryan Nuzul, like moving the ball early or whatever, a false start. We get 2 of those. It sort of sidetracks us, and each drive we had, I felt like we could get what we wanted. It just really, like, unfortunate timing with plays, unfortunate circumstances, some fumbles, and the games are just sometimes not going to go your way, and that's sort of the way I've accepted this game. We've had a lot of games go our way recently, so I'm going to take it with the loss. Seahawks looked, you did your job this week. Who do you guys play next week?
We have Buffalo next week, so it was important that we got this one because that's obviously going to be a tough game. But yeah, like the Bijan and the Falcons rushing offense is like perfectly designed to just completely gash the Seahawks rush defense. Like the Falcons had a positive EPA overall running the ball, which is like kind of unheard of. That's like really good. They had a success rate of 55% running the ball against the Seahawks, which again is really good. Like it's difficult to lose a game when you're being that efficient. But overall, like they had a 53% success rate. But everything just sort of fell apart.
Scored 14 points.
Yeah,
they only scored 14 points, and like Kirk Cousins is 232, 232 yards. Bijan and Tyler combined for 150, and we scored 14 points. Like it's just, like I do think it was just way too unlucky from our offense. And I was telling you this earlier, Max. I think this was Bijan's best game as a pro, because we saw in his rookie season there was these moments where like, oh my god, this guy, like nobody can tackle this guy. Like there's moments where he just cuts his foot in the ground and guys just like wipe away. And we sort of have seen him pick more conservative pathways as he's gone further in his career. Take guaranteed yards instead of potential yards, which I do think has its own value. But I want to see that from Tyler Algier. I don't want to see that from Bijan, who's supposed to be breaking big runs. Like, I don't think he's had a 40-yard touchdown before, over 30-yard, over 40-yard touchdown before. Like, he has not had explosive runs. But you saw the beginning of that this game, and what you saw, especially from Bijan, was the vision too. There was a couple of times where Bijan would just like stop right in the backfield. He caught it, takes 2 steps to the right, stops, completely does a spin around, sees the blocks, and then goes straight up the middle. Like, I think, do you know what play I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember a couple of those. There was one, I think, on a toss where it looked like he was heading outside, and then he just, like, his change of direction is like so ridiculous, and he just turns it upfield like so quick, and you can see the defenders try to react to it. Like, they are so behind, like, the way he's able to change directions.
No, I want to see more of that from Bijan, and he was really efficient today, and as always, this year especially, he's been amazing in pass protection as well. Like, he's taking on full charging middle linebackers, he's taken on guys, outside linebackers blitzing off the edge, and just meeting them at the line of scrimmage. It's really, really cool. And Tyler Algier only had 5 carries, but he was super effective in those as well. And receiving as well. You know, Kyle Pitts continues his streak of actually getting targets. Good for him. 65 yards, led the team. Drake London started a bit slow. I know that was a bit rough for your fantasy team, but he got a touchdown and some catches in the second half there. The thing I love about Drake London is he's a big body, right? And he kind of looks a little bit slender. He's a big body who can route run really well and has the most sure hands you can see. So he's just so well suited in between the lines with Kirk Cousins on third down. If you're not looking, if it's 3rd down and 4 and you're not looking at Drake London, I don't know what you're looking at, right? He catches every single one of these balls. I guarantee it. And it doesn't matter like how much he's being interfered, how draped the receiver is. If you can get it in his hands, he's gonna catch it. And he's deceivingly quick on those route running as well, even though he ran like a 4.5.
Yeah, like London's a great receiver. I mean, a big body, ball winner for sure. Good route runner. Like, he's just a perfect X receiver for an offense with Kirk Cousins. Like, he's able to win those in breaking routes. We didn't see too much of it today, just situationally. Like, they just, you know, the Seahawks D line was doing well to get to Cousins before, you know, those long developing plays could happen. But like, yeah, he's a perfect receiver for this offense. You saw a little bit of it in this game. He did have the one play where Love got the pick. It did go right through his hands, which was fortunate for the Seahawks. Like, the one mistake, like, that's just sort of emblematic of how the game went for the Falcons. Like, the one mistake that London makes, it's just, you know, it goes the other way. So that's obviously unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I remember even back like last year when the Falcons, maybe it was 2 years ago, when the Falcons came in and beat us at home. Like, it was like, wow, like, he's good. Yeah, 2 years ago. I was at that game. That was very depressing.
No, he has something special, I think, about him, where he's not gonna kill you in a way. He's not gonna outspeed you. He's not even gonna like outmuscle you. He's gonna outread you a little bit. Like, on a choice route, I don't think there's anybody more indestructible. Like, he's really effective. Somebody who I was really impressed with was DK Metcalf before he went down. Like, he looks super explosive. He had his way with AJ Terrell in that first half. Like, oh my god. Like, AJ Terrell, sort of, his only good quality is that he's tough as shit, and he'll just, like, knock you out. DK Metcalf just, like, trumps that ability, and then brings also the speed. Like, I don't know what we thought what was going to happen, but AJ Terrell got torched. And is he okay? Did you know? Is there any word on DK?
Yeah, so he got carted off, like, taking that hit on his knee, where he got carried out of bounds. But McDonald said in the post-game press conference that it looks like he's going to be all right. So hopefully he doesn't miss too much time. My dad wasn't super optimistic about it. My dad's a doctor, so he sometimes has early reads on these, but we've got conflicting opinions between McDonald and my dad. But I'll probably defer to McDonald on that.
Yeah, for sure, and you want to defer to him as well. This
Yeah.
actually puts you guys first in the division temporarily.
It does, yeah. And I think I saw, is it 14-3 for the Chiefs right now? So that's big. Yeah, 14-3 for the Chiefs. So hopefully, as long as Kansas City can close that out, they've got a famously not clutch quarterback. As long as Kansas City can close that out, we should climb up to first.
And were you expecting it to be? I thought your division was going to be way more competitive than ours, but I sort of feel like the NFC South might be equal, as in I think we're equal in our divisions. If Carolina was just as good as the Rams, Carolina is just such an outlier that it just makes us the worst division. But between us, Tampa Bay, and even New Orleans, if they actually have a quarterback, did you see that Thursday night football game? Jesus Christ, it was horrible.
Yeah, that was rough. I just felt bad for
Bo Nix looked good. He had
Yeah.
all the out of timeout hype up things. I'm like, why nobody's getting hype up for Bo Nix right now?
Yeah, he's Bo Nix is so bad. Like the Seahawks defense had their way with Bo Nix. Like the Saints defense is actually awful. And Rattler didn't have a very good game, but I just felt bad for him. Like he just got thrown into such a bad situation. But the NFC South, it looks like it is going to come down to the Falcons and the Buccaneers. That's going to be a good race to the end. And I would agree with you that the NFC West is definitely not as good as maybe we were expecting. I think the Cardinals and the Rams are going to be pretty much non-factors moving forward, as long as the Rams don't have an insane comeback like they did last year. So the Seahawks have every opportunity to make a play for the division, and that's why games like this are just so important. You gotta get the ones that are more winnable. No offense to the Falcons, but you can't really expect them to beat the Bills as much as you can expect them to play the Falcons close.
Yeah, I get that for sure. I think the same thing talking about our division. I told Austin this. Realistically, I think the Bucs are better than the Falcons. Is that going to shake out the same way? I don't know. The Falcons do have a much easier schedule, so I think it may end up shaking the Falcons' way. But just their offenses, I think, cancel out, and the defense of Tampa Bay is just miles ahead at this point of Atlanta. I really don't like what I see from anywhere other than our safety group, and I don't even know Grady Jarrett, just because I've always loved Grady Jarrett, so I'm just gonna give him that grandfather did sort of thing. Other than Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, and AJ Terrell being decent, not good. Actually, Mike Hughes has been pretty solid for us, I will say, and D. Alford. So maybe our secondary. I'm happy with our secondary, but without anything in the linebackers and up front with the defensive line, it's tough to win games, and especially with the injuries we accrued on our offensive line in this game, because we were playing already Ryan Mousel, who's been serviceable for us. He's our backup center, and then he also goes out. He had a lot of penalties, and then in comes Matt Hennessy, who was our starter 3 years ago. Somehow he's still on the team, and he was never good. He fills in a gap, and I didn't think there was much of a difference. And then also a second-year sophomore Matthew Bergeron also goes down, Canadian by the way. And then at that point, I think it was already too late at that point. But looking forward for our offensive line, it's looking like a couple of studs, and then just patching together whatever you can. That was supposed to be our strength,
Yeah. I mean, I would say the biggest thing in terms of the defense, that was pretty damning for the Falcons, is that the Seahawks' biggest weakness, unquestionably, has been their offensive line, and you wouldn't be able to tell from this game. The Falcons just weren't able to take advantage of that well enough. You couldn't really tell that we had our fourth string right tackle in, and that's not good. A better defense.
Judon to be at least something, at least get a couple of pressures a game. And outside of the first 2 weeks where he had a sack and a half, he's had nothing since. And in this game as well, I don't know if he was lining up against that right tackle, but it felt like he was neutralized either way. It was.
They were moving Judon around. I think there was one point where they had him lined up against when they were lining him up against Jarrell. Yeah, Did Judon have did he get a sack? I think there was only the
Today.
2 sacks that I can remember. Yeah.
It says one here, one from James Smith Williams, who's just, a guy we can just throw out there. And just got a coverage sack for us. And then the Ruka Roro, I guess, didn't count. It was just a fumble something.
Yeah. There's also the intentional grounding. Like, that's not going to go down as a sack, but like it really is a sack.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah.
But I don't know who got it.
I don't know why don't they count those as sacks? I guess there's different situations for intentional grounding, and some of them aren't worthy of a sack.
Yeah, but like PFF will count that as a sack, credited to whoever got him. But in terms of official scoring, it won't.
Yeah, I don't know. Just looking forward for the Falcons here with their upcoming schedule. We have the Bucks, Cowboys, Saints, and then Broncos before our bye week, and we're currently 4-3. I'm hoping the Saints and Broncos get those wins down, and then steal one of the Bucks and Cowboys, and we can come in 6-4. Or if that, but realistically, we're probably going to go 2-2 over that stretch. I mean, the Cowboys haven't been good. Like, Cowboys have had their good games, and they've had their really shit games. Like, they beat the Browns, which is the Browns. They beat the Giants, which is the Giants, and then they won a tough one against the Steelers, which is their only good win. But maybe we can still win against the Cowboys. I'm going to stick with my 3-1 expectation, and then be happy with 2-2. But I think if we can just hold serve with the teams in our division, we're looking good to be atop the division and into the playoffs, hopefully. But
Yeah, this
is not a happy performance for me.
Yeah, like looking forward at the Falcons schedule, like this is pretty easy. Like the it feels like the toughest games are already out of the way with the games against the Chiefs and the Falcons, and I mean, I guess you could count the Seahawks as a tougher game. Like they have a realistic chance to win every single game down the stretch here, and some of them are like absolute gimmies. Like the game against the Panthers is a gimme, the Giants is a gimme, the Raiders is a gimme, the Broncos should be a gimme. The Saints should be a gimme. Like that's an easy schedule.
And then it's also like the Chargers, Vikings, and Commanders have been serviceable this year, but like the Commanders, I believe in out of the most of those teams. I still think they have potential, like to have a bad game in them, and just completely revert to what the expectation was for them. So I don't know. I agree, and that's sort of why that's why coming into the season I had us at 12 wins, and I was sort of. I thought that was. I know a lot of people would think that was high. It's just hard to find losses in this schedule for the Falcons, especially when you start 4-2.
Yeah, and if you look at the Bucs schedule moving forward, like they've got their toughest games ahead of them. They've still got to play the Chiefs and the 49ers after they play the Falcons. So, like like in terms of the schedule, the Falcons have every opportunity to win this division, and it's also sort of good for the Seahawks that they were able to get the tiebreaker over the Falcons, because it seems like based on the schedule and based on the talent, especially offensively, like they should walk into the playoffs. And it's helpful for the Seahawks to have that tiebreaker. Quickly wrapping up my thoughts on the game, like it was closer than I think the score indicated, especially at the end of the game where the Seahawks just kind of pulled away with Kirk pressing. I was impressed by the Falcons, especially their run game. If they're able to not get behind the 8 ball in terms of game script, like they're going to be dangerous moving forward offensively. As they have been, like they've been really good offensively. They scored 74 in the 2 games before this. So I think the arrow points up for this Falcons team overall. This is a low point, obviously, but I think, like I said, they're going to walk into the playoffs and they're going to be dangerous. So. Yeah, good for the Seahawks to get the win. Thanks for having me on, Lucky. You can find me on TikTok at Purdon, on Twitter at Purdon with a 0 instead of an O. And yeah, go Hawks.
Yeah, well, if any of you guys are out there, go check those out. If there are Hawks fans out there, great guy. Even better guy than he is a content creator. Just a stand-up dude, and happy to have you on.
Thank you, Lucky. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Max.
No problem.